everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Loudwire podcast. I'm Graham.
I'm Joe.
And today we have the CEO of Eyellusion, Jeff Pezzuti. He's one of the creators of the Dio Hologram that you've been hearing about and probably have been watching on YouTube.
And have been talking about a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had him in, lots to talk about. Obviously, there's been a partial backlash about the idea of a hologram. A lot of people do support it. A lot of people might go see it. It's kind of too early to tell.
Well, it's a touchy thing, and I think you really there's no right and wrong with this. You just have to go with what your gut feels. If you feel like it's not the thing for you, don't show up. But there's so many other people like me who can't wait to see this because I just love Dio so much that any chance to have a Dio singing in a live setting, I'm happy to go.
Yeah, I want to see this thing too, to be honest. I wouldn't want to see a hologram of certain people, and we talk about this in the podcast, people who I personally wouldn't want to see a hologram of, but for some reason, the Dio hologram really appeals to me. I really want to see it, maybe because Dio was so fantasy-driven with his lyrics.
He always took you to a place that you didn't know was real, but felt real.
It just seems like it fits with him especially.
Yeah, this is a different form of escapism. He always had plenty of different means of escape in his lyrics, and this is a place for a bunch of Dio fans who are still gutted that he's not around because he got taken away from us, still in his prime at 66 years old.
Yeah, and the guy was full of magic, so and he loved, stuff like Disneyland and the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, so this is a place where Dio fans can all just escape together.
Exactly.
And relive in the magic or experience it for the first time.
Yeah, so we talked to Jeff about how closely he's working with Wendy Dio, when exactly the tour will hit North America, what songs you can expect to see if you go to one of these Dio hologram shows, all different kinds of things that you probably haven't heard before. All right, everyone, so here he is, Jeff Pezzuti of Eyellusion. It's time to sit down.
And shout! Look out!
All right, everyone, Loudwire podcast. We've got a special guest here in the studio today, the CEO of Eyellusion, the creator of, or one of the creators of, the Ronnie James Dio Hologram. That's going to be going on tour late this year. It's going to start a gigantic world tour. Jeff Pezzuti is in the studio. Thank you so much for joining us, man.
What's up, guys?
Hey,
Thanks
how
for
are
having
you?
me. Oh, it's great.
Thanks for coming in.
When it comes to this hologram, who approached who first when it comes to Wendy Dio?
Sure. I approached Wendy first. I mean, it was my quote-unquote crazy idea that I thought this would be something that the fans would love to hear. So I reached out to Wendy. I told her what the vision was, and, after a few different meetings we had, she finally came on board. But it was extremely exciting for us from the beginning.
Yeah, I remember when I first saw the whole unveiling at Wacken, and I'll admit I got a little misty-eyed.
Yeah, me too.
Ronnie's one of my favorite singers. He should be every metal fan's one of their favorite singers. But I just had a really deep connection with his music. He was one of the first metal acts that I got into, and I wept when he died. I listened to nothing but Ronnie's voice for an entire week. I wasn't even working during this week. I was just at home listening to nothing but Dio. So to see this happen, I had no idea anything on this scale was coming. So I'm obviously stoked for it. There's been a lot of backlash, though.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't think that it's ethical. There's a weird moral line. Some people say it's exploitative. Now, you're working very close with Wendy.
Right.
What do you have to say to those detractors? What can you say to win them over?
Well, it's funny because when I saw coming from a standpoint of being a fan first. So the one thing that people have to understand, this is not a business guy coming in trying to make Ronnie James Dio a hologram. This is a fan of the legend Ronnie James Dio that was making the hologram. So looking at it from that aspect, I mean, the first time I saw Ronnie was in 1985 on the Sacred Heart Tour, so at the Brendan Byrne Arena, no less, in New Jersey. And seeing that show actually changed me as a both a fan and as a metal fan. But that being said, people have to understand that, where we are in the music space, especially the way the industry is built right now, that guys like Ronnie James Dio, you know, that deserve to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, deserve to be recognized as one of the greatest vocalists of all time, if not the greatest metal vocalist of all time, need to understand that, you know, if we don't do something like this as a quote-unquote distribution channel to get his music out there, nobody's going to know who he is at one point in time. And we have to, it's so important that people do understand how important he was to the industry and to the metal community. So when we started thinking about this, you know, or when I started thinking about it, you know, the idea was, hey, listen, if we put Ronnie's vocals via hologram with a live band, so it's not like it's a movie, and put on this great show, people will come. You know, the people will come. And then when I started seeing the ethical thing, I said, well, they're not getting what we're trying to do. This is a celebration of Ronnie James Dio. This is not a
preservation of the legacy.
Yeah, it's a preservation. This is not about, hey, listen, let's put Ronnie on stage and just charge people a bunch of money. It's not that at all. It was built from the fact of, hey, this music is important to a whole legion of fans around the world, and the only way that we're going to get it out there, because of the amount of and we all know this, that most of the revenue most of the money comes from touring.
Sure.
If an artist is not out there touring, nobody's gonna know who they are. Mm-hmm. So it became a really important concept. So for us, it was about, hey, listen, let's celebrate Ronnie. Let's get it out there. Let's put it with a live band. Let's create an incredible show around it and really make it fun.
And especially for the younger generation, if you don't have something like this, they're going to learn about Ronnie maybe through an older brother or sister or a family member of like, hey, check this stuff out. But as far as discovering it on your own, I mean, there's so much stuff out there these days that how do you go back and just wind up discovering a catalog for somebody who's no longer with us?
Well, frankly, we're a part of that younger generation because we're both.
Yeah, we were like the last. We were the last ones to get. Yeah,
yeah.
Well, I'm saying
you guys are the last ones in, because that's really important, because, you know, I'm 44, and being in that age group, you know, I'm one of the last ones from when Ronnie was already an established artist, right? Because Ronnie was already in Dio. You know, I was too young for the Rainbow Side. You know, I caught him with Sabbath, you know, when Mob Rules came out, and then went back to Heaven and Hell. But that was like really when I really started to really love Ronnie James Dio. But the idea was that, you know, this group, your age group, is the last ones that know who Ronnie is at this point, right?
Yeah,
this is
true.
the last ones that are out there.
He was a living performer.
Living performer. So what happens is, at that point, at that exact line, how do we get it down to that next generation? This is a way, like I said, using that distribution channel model. This is a way that we're going to get it out there so fans can really appreciate who he was. And again, when you're hearing those vocals, and nobody sounds like Ronnie, I don't care how great of a singer you are or who they are, nobody has that tone, nobody has that, you know, that power in their voice. So that shows you how important he was. And not only that, he was so loved by the community and the metal community that it just makes a lot of sense. So when going back to that, when I see the detractors, I'm actually kind of surprised, because Dio fans to me, are the ones that really should embrace this and understand that, hey, listen, this is coming from a good place. This is not coming from that, you know, from a corporate place. And that's really what I'm.
You didn't anticipate this kind of backlash at all?
Well, I always think there's, you know, nothing ever goes, you know, 100%. But I thought, you know, and we have been, honestly, I mean, we've been relatively positive. The people that have reached out to us directly have been really positive. And I can tell you, the ones that were in the room at Polestar are the ones that really were blown away, because they saw it live.
Right, instead of just watching it on YouTube.
Totally different experience.
Yeah,
right.
From just a fan in the audience or whatever.
And like you said, it makes sense for Ronnie. All of his lyrics were fantasy driven. It was all this weird escape. And then he talked a lot about technology on Dehumanizer. So it seems like, as far as a touring entity with the hologram, like, it's natural that Dio would be the first.
And it's funny, you know, getting to know Wendy over the last couple of years, and knowing that, and through that, getting to know Ronnie, you know, being a fan is one thing, getting to know a person is another, right? So we all have that. Every artist has that line that you never really know. You never really know what's behind the curtain. And I've gotten to know, like, who Ronnie was just through, you know, band members like Simon Wright or Craig Goldie, and getting to know their aspect, and obviously Wendy's take, and family and friends, and knowing who he was as a person, you know. And we've all kind of come to this strange yet believable agreement that he would be in favor of this because of who he was. Because nobody as an artist wants to see their legacy just dwindle away.
And, you know, just every couple of years, well, here's a reissue, and
no, it's not
remember
the same.
Me there. Yeah,
I mean, the way you really make an impact globally is to do something like this and put a foothold in the industry and say, hey, listen, this music is important and people should understand how important it was. And when people hear songs like Holy Diver and Last in Line and King of Rock and Roll and those songs, they people will say, wow, we were stand up and shout. I mean, these are important songs, and the reason that they're important is because they're great songs. They're not just important; they're fun to listen to.
If anyone on this planet would know whether or not Ronnie would be in favor of this, obviously it would be Wendy Dio, the person who knew him better than anybody else.
Yeah, you did the Wikipedia Fact or Fiction with her, and she knew every
about
single
Ronnie.
nuance of Ronnie's life.
And she's an incredible person, and you're right. We've all come to the agreement that that he would be in favor of this just because of that. Ronnie was also a guy who always loved incredible shows and stage shows, and the ability to do something like this when he was when he was with us would be different because he was like, wow, we can use this, we can do this, we can do that. Having two of himself on stage, who knows? But the idea was that this would be something that he would have entertained even when he was alive. So the fact that there are people who don't understand it, and again, you're never going to win everybody over, but the fact is, I always throw it out there as a quote unquote gauntlet is that, hey, listen, you can criticize. Everyone has the right to criticize. Everyone has it's freedom of speech. You can say what you want, but come see the show and then come back and give me feedback or give us feedback, because it really is. At the end of the day, when you're seeing a live band and you hear the magical vocals of Ronnie James Dio, and there's a visual of him up on stage that nobody can touch anyway, and he's still looking like he is. I mean, to me, it's a win-win for everybody. It's a celebration of what he was.
I wish he would have lived long enough to see the Tupac hologram, just to see what his reaction to that would have been.
Just know that something in that realm is possible.
He probably would have called Wendy immediately. Said, Wendy, we need to get on this.
Speaking personally, as a huge mega fan of Dio, I never got to see him live, unfortunately. It's one of the great regrets of my life. I
saw him 4 times.
I remember we were going to see him, but then it turned out on that day, which ended up being like his 4th last concert or something like that, that I had some family thing. I had like a family dinner I had to go to, so I had to miss it. So, I obviously don't regret spending time with my family, but just the fact that I didn't get to hear that powerful voice live, and you even met him, Joe, after the show.
Yeah, after the show.
Not getting to meet him or just to feel his presence, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to know that I can't ever have that. So when this hologram came about, I went, okay, like I can have a little piece of what that would have felt like.
And that's the idea. We never said we were ever going to replace Ronnie. He's irreplaceable, and it's never going to happen. But what we couldn't do is give the fans a celebration to be able to see him. And your point is exactly that, right? You can watch YouTube all you want, and it's 100% not the same, right? You're not getting
That's
anything
why people
close.
still show up to concerts instead of watching them on YouTube.
It's exactly it. I mean, you're not getting anything close to the live experience. I mean, when those lights go out, it's not like you're going to, watch it at your house. You can turn the lights out the same. It's not the same.
Doesn't matter what speaker system you have,
it
how
doesn't
big
matter.
your TV is.
It's
VR
when you're
or
online,
anything.
when you're online for the beer lines, whatever you're doing, that's why you're going out to see a show. And that's what that's the whole thing is like, when those amps start to hum and when the lights go out and we have visual effects that we're putting on for the tour, that's what the whole thing is about. It's a whole experience. And Ronnie would be, his voice is just so magical when you hear it. And especially for us, like, I've listened to Ronnie for, again, since like 82 or whatever it was I first started listening to Dio, or Black Sabbath. The idea was, that vocal, when you hear it live, and it's a live vocal with the live band, I mean, it just sends you this, to another place.
That was one of the fan questions we got. We put up a little thing on our Facebook asking people to send in their questions. One person wanted to know, where did the footage of Ronnie come from? A show? Where and when? Was it taped on a soundstage for this purpose? Well, obviously not.
No.
But yeah, where did this footage come from?
So the footage is actually, it's interesting. So we scour through a bunch of videos and we scour through photos and stuff, but it's all digitally created, right? So it's not taken from any specific performance or anything. The only thing that's taken from performance is the actual vocal. So we isolate the vocal. So it's all live vocals. It's not from studio tracks, but the live vocal is then isolated, and we take that and we match it to the hologram.
So the rest of it, the hologram itself is a digital replication of his movements.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's really interesting process how we do it. You know, it's an enormously labor intensive, and that's where the funniest part that makes me laugh is the cash cow parts and stuff. People have no idea how much stuff costs.
That's double. This thing.
I mean, it's like there's no such thing as have any idea what this kind of thing costs. And when I see that, I actually laugh. I'm like, oh my god. But you know, I give everyone their chance to weigh in and listen. I can take criticism pretty strong, and I understand. People are always going to be on the other side of the fence, and the ones that are with us, when they come see the show, I can guarantee they're going to love it. And the ones that don't go see the show but like to criticize, hey, listen, you're missing out. And that's the way I would leave it.
How much does this thing cost per song? Is that something you can tell us?
Well, I can just tell you it's expensive. It's not cheap.
In the six figures per song?
Yes, it would be in that ballpark.
Not seven?
No, well, if you're talking about it maybe as a group, yeah, you're getting up to seven.
So the entire thing, seven figures.
So
wow.
when you're talking, that's why I say when people say cash cow, you have to say, or any of those things like milking on the thing, it just doesn't make any sense because the fact is,
shell out a lot.
It's expensive to put this on. This is not a cheap endeavor, and this shows you how much of a labor intensive and passion project it is. Listen, at the end of the day, we want people to understand globally that this is important for us as both a company and for Ronnie James Dio and for the spirit to live on, and that's really what it is.
Now, I imagine you had to bring in like kinetic specialists to work with the digital team as far as mapping out the movements and everything for Ronnie.
There's a whole team that's involved, and we're lucky to have an incredible digital team behind us. My team lead is a guy named Chad Finnerty, who's been great. We also have a guy named Scott Ross. He was partners with James Cameron. They did Titanic and Terminator together. So
he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. We've got really heavy hitters behind it, and that's really how we've. I think this time I was happy with the one that we debuted at Vakken. I was happy with happy with it. This time we're going to blow people away. So people who thought that was great are going to be, like jaw dropping when they see this one.
Yeah, I spoke to Wendy in Los Angeles in I think January of this year.
At the bowling?
At the heavy metal Hall of History.
Oh yeah, I was there. Yeah,
yeah. I spoke to her there, and she was saying that if this thing was to be a full concert, if it was going to be an hour long, there would be 4 songs.
Right.
If it would be a 90-minute set, there's going to be 4 times that Ronnie the Hologram would come out. A 90-minute set, 6 songs. Right. So can you divulge which songs are going to be part of this set, which Mr. Dio Hologram is going to sing?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that we tried to cover every part of his career. So it was important for us to do, both Rainbow, Sabbath, and Dio. And
I was going to say I need one Rainbow song at
exactly.
least.
Stargazer, please.
Yeah.
Now, it's important to also understand, too, that
Silver Mountain.
as a band and as with live singers, we can create in between to make the set kind of cohesive, right? So the idea is a celebration of his career. So from the hologram standpoint, I can guarantee you he's going to be doing like a Neon Nights from Sabbath.
Sweet.
He's going to be doing Last in Line and Holy Diver and King of Rock and Roll from the Dio stuff.
Ooh.
And then we're, from Rainbow, I can guarantee he was doing Man on the Silver Mountain.
Yes.
So those are all guarantees. So
Stargazer, does that enter anywhere?
Stargazer will be in the set,
one.
but it's not with the hologram.
Okay.
That's probably going to be if we continue down this. When we continue down this path and start doing more content, that would be maybe for a U.S. run for next year.
Awesome. So, I think that's the greatest song ever written. So.
Well, I think we all agree on that's a great song.
I'll take Man on the Silver Mountain personally. Just personally.
We'll fight about that after the podcast.
That was 5 songs you mentioned, I think.
Yeah.
What's the 6th?
Oh, and there's actually 2 more. There's Rainbow in the Dark and We Rock.
Wow.
Sweet.
So will you be shuffling around the set list? Or?
We will. I mean, there's a little bit of... we're going to be moving things around. We're going to try and keep it, kind of keep people guessing where we can. We do like to keep a pretty stagnant set list for the most part because of the production qualities, but there's parts that we're going to try and change.
So the rest will just be Dio Disciples.
Yeah, it's going to be the Dio Disciples band, and with live singers, we've got both Ripper Owens and Oni Logan from Lynch Mob live singing. So
I didn't know about that. Do you know about that?
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Where have I been?
With us, it was about creating a great show. So we want 90 minutes. We want both visuals and content-wise to really make the show entertaining. The one thing that we me being live music fiend for a long time is that a lot of bands have cut back on the production values of shows because of because they have to because of the money. So we've tried to change that a little bit and try and put them back in. So only because Ronnie would have wanted it that way. So that's why I said when people say anything about just trying to call,
you have the giant mountains from like the early '80s tours.
We're gonna have some really cool things, and we got some visuals that I think people are really gonna enjoy and really make it fun. And like I said, it is a celebration at the end of the day, and we're proud of what we've done, and we're proud of where we're going.
I'd kill to see like a 10, 15-foot mountaintop drum riser again.
The giant mountain drum riser. Oh, that was so good. Was it the Holy Diver tour, or was that after?
Well, he did it twice. So he did the mountain was Holy Diver, and then he kind of they leveled it off for Last in Line, making it almost like a temple, and then for Sacred Heart they made it into like a castle. So they did like the 3.
God, it's so silly. I love it.
Yeah.
But that's, that was what music was at the time. Everyone was trying to outdo each other from a production standpoint. And somewhere around the late, like once we had this run of all the 80s bands, when the 90s hit, and we can all thank that same band that we all talk about all the time, which was when Nirvana came. Sure. They stripped everything out of, they were non-production, get up there.
Jean shirts,
cabs. No, the limited lights and get up there and play.
Strings hanging off the headstock.
And that was what happened, and all the bands kind of followed suit.
Same deal with Pantera in the metal realm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Break it down back to basics.
Pantera did something I remember really cool that I really enjoyed when I saw them. I saw them so many times. I actually saw them when they first came out. They opened up for Suicidal Tendencies here at the Ritz in New York, and it was,
Exodus too, right?
Yeah, Exodus too. Suicidal, Exodus, and Pantera. The Pantera was the third on the bill,
right?
And I was at the show at the Ritz, and I was a fan already because I love Cowboys from Hell, and seeing Phil come out on stage, I'll never forget that. He just tore it up. I mean, he came up with no shirt, shorts, and just like literally was like a maniac,
an animal
walking through the crowd afterwards. And I'm like, that guy is gonna be something.
He's like a feral frontman.
When they opened for Sabbath for the reunion tour, they had put this giant steel, almost like a fence around them. It was so cool.
Like Ministry?
Sort of, but it was like you'd see right there was like a fence. The whole stage was like a fence. And I'll never forget that. It was like because that was the Reinventing the Steel tour, and it was really a pretty cool thing that they did.
Yeah, it's like Maiden are the only ones really from that era that still bring the full blown '80s
Maiden
stage
and
production.
Priest. I mean, because I think the two of them still kind of go hand in hand. I think that they both really, and Kiss obviously, so they still go. Yeah. They still kind of go through that full production aspect, and a lot of the other bands have, obviously because of how much it costs to take something like that on the road.
It used to fund that through the record sales.
Yeah, exactly. It was a completely different model at that time, and I was just talking about this recently. I said, it's so funny how the industry has changed, but how bands used to go on tour to try and promote a record. Well, now they go opposite. They go.
Yeah, it's true.
They put a record out just to go on tour.
Even Paul Stanley said that. We just interviewed Paul Stanley for the podcast. He said that exact same thing.
It's exact. The model has completely switched, and it's caused bands to really think. And it gets interesting because what we're doing becomes that. All those bands we just talked about. The fact is, at one point they're not going to be able to tour, and what's going to happen to their fans? We can create shows for each of them. And actually make it like where I could say, and you see the band, they're on stage. We can do album shows. We can do some cool stuff, and I think that's where it really becomes interesting.
Yeah. So this thing is going to hit Europe at the end of this year. Eventually, it will make its way to the States. When can fans in North America expect to see this tour?
I'm going to say summertime for sure, just based on the scheduling right now. So we've got, our agents working on it, and we've got offers in South America and Mexico. Definitely going to do those, before. And then I was telling you guys that we're either going to go South America, Mexico, U.S., or Mexico, South America, all the way through Argentina and back into the U.S. So
South America is going to go crazy.
Yeah, that's what we're saying. Yeah. The South American audience is going to be an interesting one to see how they react.
It's interesting because they are. I remember when we put the first one out, the Vacan one. South America was all over the place. It was like you see, and I don't speak Spanish well enough to be able to translate. So my future wife was doing all the translating for me. She was, because she's from Ecuador. She was reading it, and she's like, "Okay, this is this, this is that, this is this." So I always thought that if people really understand what we're trying to do, and I watched it. When I was at Vacan with Wendy and Todd, and I guess you guys know Todd Singerman too. You guys probably know him.
Yeah, you managed Motorhead, Anthrax.
So the three of us were there together, and we watched it from the stage. And I can tell you that it was from knowing how long it took to build and do everything, and seeing it all come to fruition, and people not knowing it was happening, and hearing the people go wild. It was a wild experience. It was something that honestly I'll never forget. But knowing that where it's going to go future was really exciting. It's like I say, hey, listen, this was just the beginning, and to know that we can take something that where I know that fans would really enjoy it, and make something that's cool from both a fan's perspective as well as Ronnie's legacy, and really make pass that stuff down. And
now, what was Wendy's reaction like seeing that? I mean, I imagine she previewed it before and everything, but to see it actually in front of the crowd, and that has to be a very peculiar situation that she's in.
She was, I gotta be honest. I mean, she was. Well, we had done rehearsals before we left for Germany, and she was excited. She was excited, obviously, but the reaction that she had in Germany was completely different. She actually did. She was crying. I think because of that. It's a completely different aspect to see the stage lights and everything, and seeing him back on stage and on that enormous stage.
It's real in that moment.
Yeah,
the rehearsals are the rehearsals. It's happening. But
it really was. It changed. I mean, I had seen the rehearsals for weeks, and nothing had impacted me like the way it did when I saw it on stage. I was like, wow. And I heard the crowd. And the crowd roared, and you have all these people behind you, and you're screaming. And you're like,
and he holds up the Wacken banner, and
yeah,
it was wild. I mean, we were really proud of what we've done, and I always say to anybody out there, the detractors or people that are supportive of it, I mean, they have to understand it is a passion project for us, but also a labor of love, and it's coming from the right place. I mean, it's truly I am a true metal fan and a rock fan, down to the core. And that doesn't usually happen, and that's where that's what happens with some of this tech stuff. If you get the wrong people behind it, it's like more of a corporate thing, and it becomes this weird space where metal fans are like, this guy's he's a corporate trying to make it metal. It's the opposite in this case. I'm a metal guy that's trying to make something that's cool.
Yeah. Do you think there's anybody who the hologram concept would not work for? Because I was thinking of, musicians who have been passed on, and who I would want to see and who I wouldn't want to see. And the first name that came up for a guy I would not want to see in hologram form was Freddie Mercury. And then I kind of had to ask myself why. Like, why was I so against that? I think maybe just because his physical presence and his showmanship was so elaborate and so powerful. To have him not physically there, it pained me a little more than the.
It seems like there's no rhyme or reason or logical explanation other than just gut feeling.
Yeah, and then I went to like Jimi Hendrix. I'm like, I wouldn't want to see hologram Jimi Hendrix play a hologram guitar, So I found
the Dio thing is like the greatest thing that's ever happened.
I found myself in a very weird situation.
I think we agree that and being it from a, like I said, when I was in 6th grade, the guys from my grammar school laughed, but I was in 6th grade shop class. I made a Dio plaque, that's in 6th grade, and I'm like, this is to know all this has come because of where we've where I've taken it. But that being said, I mean, I think I disagree with you on the Freddie Mercury one because I am a Queen fan, an enormous fan, and I've seen the band with Paul Rodgers. I haven't seen the Adam Lambert version, but Paul Rodgers. And every year when Queen was put out a new record, especially like the Innuendo record and a Kind of Magic record back in the 80s, I kept saying, oh, this is the year they're going to tour the U.S. This is the year they're going to tour the U.S. And it never happened.
Yeah.
And I was too young to see them before that. And to see Brian May and Roger Taylor with the Freddie vocal, with the Freddie, visual representation of the hologram, I think it would be very cool. I really do. I think that he's one I think would work really well. Now, it's interesting because Queen was never as big in the U.S. as they were outside the U.S.
Sure.
But I think that like bands like that would work. And I would say the same thing about Jimi Hendrix because, again, you can't – to watch old videos is not the same as hearing a guy plug in. And if I told you I could get you Jimi Hendrix and put an all-star band around him and you're going to go see that – that might change your idea.
It's possible.
Or maybe on the Experience Hendrix tour, have that come out at the end
after
every
something
huge celebration.
I mean, can you imagine if you had and not saying these people would ever do it, but I'm saying if you had like a Dave Grohl on drums and you had this whole band set up that it was like, like a 3-piece. I mean, Billy Sheehan on bass and then Hendrix on.
Can't go wrong with
yeah.
that.
But then it's like, are they really the attraction, or is it about Hendrix really, or do you just want to see this cool all-star band play awesome music?
It becomes like, Hendrix is a guy that his guitar playing was so iconic, and obviously his vocals were unique at the time, especially. Mm-hmm. So I always thought that would be something that I would really want to see. I mean, there's certain acts that I think it works really, really well for. There's certain acts that I would never touch, and it's funny. People always said, "Oh, something about Michael Jackson." I said, "I wouldn't go near Michael Jackson because that's not my style of music. Number one, but number two, it's just like I think that the problem with the industry now is that a lot of metal fans and a lot of metal music and hard rock in general doesn't get the recognition it deserves. And I don't want to roll over into the pop world. I want to focus on the ones that really, really matter. Somebody mentioned something about doing a Chuck Schuldiner from Death, and I thought. That's an interesting one because that one didn't cross my thing, but I said,
They're
"Wow,
doing that Death to All tour."
Yeah, it's like it was funny because it didn't dawn on me, but there's legends in the industry that I think really do deserve to be recognized. And a band like Death was at the time were groundbreaking because they took the quote unquote death metal to a pretty high level. And
we're both huge fans of Death.
Call that one the Beyond the Unholy Grave tour.
And I think that a guy like that might be, who knows? I mean, but I just always say that the reason that we've gone down this route and the reason that I even wanted to even do Ronnie was for that reason, is because I want people to understand how important that music is to a certain, legion of fans. And there's nothing better than to, because the pop world is always going to outweigh the from a popularity standpoint, obviously it's why it's pop, but from a metal community, and the metal community is so strong, and the fans are so embracing, and you want to give back to that community. You don't want to just do something because it's commercial. You want to do something that you really you're satisfying a certain group of people that really are, that it's like a way of life. Hard rock and metal is not something that people understand unless they're in it. Because it really
it's like the saying, if you used to be punk, you never were.
Exactly. It's true, right? But it's like something that people have to, it's a way of life because that's the way you go see these shows, you go see these bands, and you do this thing because it's really what you enjoy, but it's a lifestyle. It becomes more than just the music. It becomes how you live your life, and everyone gets along that way. The metal communities, and the reason that people still talk about, bands that were big at one point that aren't big anymore, or bands that are still big like the Metallicas of the world because of the fact that it was brought out. Like Metallica first came on tour, they were opening for bands like Raven. People forget about that. Raven was the headliner and Metallica was opening. It's like Metallica's playing stadiums now and Raven is not.
Yeah, they did, they did a club show tour either earlier this year or last year.
No, they're still good. It has nothing to do with the style of style of music, quality. Rock. It's exactly. But the thing is that, the metal community has always stayed strong and they support all bands, and when a band kind of goes down, they find a way to get them back up. So, it's interesting. I've always found it.
Is there any rock or metal musician that you wouldn't touch for a hologram, or is it just the pop stuff you wouldn't touch?
I've thought about it a lot, and I said there's probably a few that I would stay away from, maybe, for now, but, for us, it's like, I don't want to just think about this business as just being somebody like about deceased celebrities or deceased artists, because I always think there's a way there is a way to capitalize on artists that are still alive. And you take, like, just use Iron Maiden, for example, right? So Iron Maiden is never, in our lifetime, and I assume this, maybe I'm wrong, they have his plans, is never going to perform like Number of the Beast live in its entirety, ever. Right?
Oh, like do an album tour?
Probably not.
No. Right. They've got probably 2 tours left, maybe 3. They'll probably do another studio record. They'll probably go back out on tour for that record. They'll probably do another greatest hits tour, and they'll probably do maybe something else. Who knows? But Maiden, they've been doing it for a long time. They've remained the same level or bigger for the entire time they've been.
They're bigger now than they ever have been.
It's incredible. I mean, you don't see that. No radio play, no nothing. It's all about being in Iron Maiden. 2 nights at Barclays just recently, which is crazy.
Yep.
I was there for the first night. It was awesome.
Me too. Insane.
So, but that being said, they'll never do something like that. They'll never do Peace of Mind If they did one of them, they couldn't do both, right? So that's like,
just don't play Quest for Fire live.
But those kind of shows, if you did something like that with visual effects and you put it in a smaller theater and you had people, you charged whatever price, smaller price point to go see it in multiple places, you'd have the Maiden fans coming out in droves if they know they can't see it anywhere else, right? And I think that is those are the things. I don't want people to think it's just about a quote unquote deceased artist versus a live artist, because I think it's both. And I think that we want that metal music and the hard rock music to continue, and that the issue is that when bands like Maiden, Priest, Metallica, AC/DC, and all the big ones do finally stop touring, they're all going to be in that same weird spot.
There's going to be a huge void too.
There's going to be an enormous void, because we need to go out and see these shows, and we need to go out and see this live music, and that's what makes it fun. That those bands, the reason people go there just for the experience of seeing a live show. They don't. Some of them, I saw people that didn't know half the songs that Maiden was playing.
Yeah.
Especially the newer stuff. So, but the thing is that they still went and they still support, because they want to hear Wasted Years. They want to hear the Trooper. That those songs will live forever, but they don't get played on the radio, and they're going to be in a weird spot from a band standpoint, because they're not going to physically be able to tour. Because they, look at Bruce Dickinson. The guy's like a maniac on stage.
He just turned 59.
Yeah, and he's running around like a lunatic.
He's in Iron Maiden.
Steve Harris is still, he still looks the same. Actually, I think he's the only guy who hasn't aged. Looks exactly the same.
Yannick looks horrible, by the way.
Yeah, well, that's a whole different. I'd love to come back for a podcast just on that, because I have a whole different feedback on that.
You can make a Yannick hologram.
God.
Did you see that post on the Hard Times or whatever? Was that Metallica replaced perfectly healthy Lars Ulrich with hologram?
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. I was like, oh my god. I saw that. I was like, oh god.
Those guys are
Everyone
funny.
seemed to be in favor of the hologram.
But I don't understand, because I think Lars still kicks ass. I mean, I've seen them numerous times, and everyone always. I don't understand the Lars thing. I think it all started with the Napster thing, and it never kind of got off of that. So
Maybe.
I think he just.
Clearly, he's getting it done because they're playing to a ton of people.
They're playing.
Yeah.
They're playing
and that won't ever change. So Lars is a guy that, or Metallica is a band that has gotten, everyone. The only sidestep that they ever had was Load and Reload. I think that was
Saint Anger.
And Saint Anger. But Saint Anger, I give them a little credit for, because they tried to get heavy. They missed out on the songs weren't that good, but they tried to go back to a heavy spot. They fixed that in Death Magnetic, but they kind of lost it in between. But I gave them credit because they tried to go for a heavier. It's just that the songs were. Matter of fact, I'll never forget the first time I ever heard that record. I was like, "Where are the hooks?" It's like nowhere to be found.
I've started a love affair with Some Kind of Monster this year. I've watched it like 10 times this year.
Oh
alone.
my god!
Yeah.
And
God bless you.
I'll be honest, I'm not intimately familiar with Saint Anger, so I'm listening to it. I'm watching it with one of my buddies, and he's singing along. I was like, "Wait, that song made the cut for the album?"
It is the best Spinal Tap sequel there ever could have been.
Yeah.
It was like a record that they forced, and it was pretty. It was interesting that they put it out, and it was interesting that they were behind it. And then when they had the whole documentary come out, it was like, wow, this is a lot deeper than they need to be. This is supposed to be fun. This is not supposed to be about.
It shows
psychology.
you what bands go through though when they get that big, and you're just like, where do we go from here?
Well, it's not. We all learn. I mean, I've learned this firsthand. I mean, it's not easy to write a song. It's not easy to be relevant for 40 years, 30 years, 20 years to 2 years. I mean, look at the way the world we are now. An artist can release an incredible song, tomorrow, and they could be gone, in 2 weeks, and then that song could have been amazing, and it could be played everywhere. But the fact is that in this world, we have a very short attention span, which is why, the same reason that the hard rock people have to be, unified around what's trying to happen. Like, support the music, support these guys. These guys that go on the road, do a ton of shows, and if people don't go after them, they're gonna stop going on the road because they have to be able to pay their bills.
Yeah.
So
How about this? When Metallica does their next arena tour, right before they do For Whom the Bell Tolls, hologram Cliff Burton playing that bass line.
I think
that would be cool. That would be cool. I would like. The fans would go nuts to see Cliff back there playing that.
I agree.
Lick.
I agree. That was I saw the first time I saw Metallica. I saw them on Just for All, and And actually, I didn't hear for, I think it was like 3 days. Queensryche opened up, and I swear to God, it was so loud. It was the loudest. Because they opened up with Blackened, and I'll never forget when the first chord hit for Blackened. I was like, I think I did, my ears popped. That's how bad it was. But it was so, and they played. This is going to date me, but they played the then Brendan Byrne Arena was Continental Arena, the Continental Airlines over in Jersey.
Okay,
it's called Brendan Byrne at that time, I think. But yeah, it was crazy loud, and it was so good. But it was with Jason Newsted, and I never got a chance to see Metallica with Cliff on the Master Tour. They opened up for Ozzy, and I was just didn't go to the show. So,
all right.
Now, talking about live bands, someone actually asked on Facebook when we asked for some questions. Has anybody living approached you about filming them for a hologram for when they either stop touring or pass on?
Oh my God, you name it. There's always been a joke, or sometimes it's real. That's why you said Don Jameson was one. Don was laughing when we said, he says, I need a hologram of me. So I was like,
do 2 shows a night.
Exactly. And it's funny because you've heard it from a lot of people, and I think that there's certain artists that it makes a ton of sense for to do it now. With bands like Aerosmith and AC/DC in a weird spot, and others that are getting ready to wind down, I think it makes sense. I really do. I mean, being honest, look at the opportunity for the artist. Look at the opportunity for the fans to see them. I mean, nobody knows how hard it is to actually go on the road until they've actually done it. To go from hotel to hotel to hotel, from plane to plane to plane, which is why Tony Iommi came out when Sabbath was doing the recent tour, and just says, I don't like the tour.
Yeah, he said he can't do it anymore.
You can't physically do it because it is a extremely taxing thing on your body. You basically play for 2 hours, but before that, you get up at whatever time of the day. You're waiting around all day. You do a sound check for maybe 30 minutes, and then you go back. You wait for the opener to go on. You go on at 8:15, or not, actually 9:15. You play to 11:15. You're done, and then you get back on the bus, go to the next spot, do the same thing. Well, when you're younger, it's exciting because it's something you look forward to doing, right? It's about the fans. It's and I'm sure Sabbath feels the same way. It's about the fans, but your body,
when you're
saying,
pushing 70 and battling
when your body's saying, "Hey, listen, we got to take a break." This has been going on for a long time. So, I would say it's out there, and it could be almost anybody that would want that. Like I said, but my vision is, I wouldn't just want to do where people go wrong and where people have gone wrong in the past is they look at it as it's just a hologram, it's just technology. No. What we're doing is envisioning it like it's a true live show. Put the bells and whistles behind it. Make it fun. Make it engaging to the fans. Try and make it something that people are going to walk out of there and say, hey, listen, it wasn't the real thing. I know that, but man, that was fun. Those are songs that I have not heard live in 20 years or 30 years. And bands that have a rich catalog, like Aerosmith, like AC/DC, those are the bands that can do it. See, those bands actually end up falling into a rut because they have to play a certain amount of songs live, right? They have to play a certain 15 songs that they can't get away from playing. So their set list ends up changing only a few every tour, right? 4 or 5. But if you could actually do something where you can have these bands perform these quote-unquote album shows where people would be behind it, it would change the way people would be able to see live music, and it would become a new way for them to, get behind the catalog, really get behind something that they could,
Yeah, and it brings you back to the experience of putting that album on for the first time.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I put on so many of Dio albums when I first got into metal, or even when I just got into Iron Maiden. 6 months later, they put out Dance of Death, and I went to school and I asked my mom, the new Iron Maiden album is out. Can you go out and get it for me while I'm at school?
Well, you just made me feel really old.
But she did. And then I came home, I got off the bus, and I listened to the new Maiden album on repeat for the next 8 months.
Well, that's actually what's changed in the industry too, is the fact that excitement of new music. There's a lot of great new music out there that people aren't. I can't figure out why they're not engaging to it. Maybe it's because the market is flooded with new music. But the thing is, there used to be a way that a band would release an album and you wouldn't stop listening to it till you got your next record. You'd be 1, 2, 3. You'd queue them up, but now it's there's so much out there. You get 20 records coming out every Friday. It's all right, so where do I start? And then the following Friday, you got 20 more, and then before you know it, you're
Before, it was just huge bands signed that were making up these label rosters, but now you have dozens and dozens and dozens, and a lot of them, honestly, start to sound the same.
Right.
So now you can be beholden to this band or that band, but you can get that sound so many other places where you're not looking forward to that one band to release something new.
It's fun. I mean, I think it's the same thing. Like, you know, a lot of bands go through the remaster, reissue, that whole phase, and they try and put extra bonus tracks. And listen, I think is a way to actually capitalize on making something for the fans that they could be really behind. And I think this distribution channel, this way of doing the hologram would be kind of fun, and fans could still go out and see a show.
Has Gene Simmons called you yet?
No comment. No.
That's not a no.
I can imagine him being the first guy to call to do like Kiss the hologram show and have that tour. I could totally see him doing that.
Well, you know, it's funny because I am a big Kiss fan, and I have so many great ideas for so many different bands. And, you know, you guys, again, are too young, but the first time I saw Kiss, I'll never forget, that blew my mind. You know, it was just, you know, that was the first band that I had seen that actually used pyro in a show, and I'll never forget how loud it was and how crazy it was just to hear like bombs going off. Like, now people be running for cover, but that Kiss show was normal.
Yeah. All right, Jeff, we want to thank you so much for dropping by and talking to us today, man. We really, really appreciate it. Eyellusion, and get ready for the Dio Hologram World Tour going all around the world, starting late 2017 and probably all of 2018. I'm sure it's going to be all over the place next year.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's 11th. It's kicking off November 30th in Helsinki, Finland. And then if you guys want to check us out, eyellusionlive.com. You'll follow us on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram. And we'll have more announcements in the very near future for new artists.
All right.
Awesome.
Keep your eyes open, everybody.
Thanks a lot, Jeff.
Right, thanks.
Oh, thanks, guys.
All right, Jeff Pezzuti, everybody, CEO of Eyellusion.
Yeah, I mean, we've been discussing wanting to do a podcast just talking about the Dio Hologram since the news kind of got announced.
Yeah, we were going to go eventually see the hologram and then do a podcast about it. We still might. But when we got the email, hey, do you want to talk to Jeff? We jumped
absolutely.
on it. Of course we do. We want to know all about this thing.
And after talking to him, you really can't tell. As he said, he's a metal fan first.
Oh, yeah.
He just happens to be in a really, really, really cool business where as a metal fan, he can just make his dream come true.
You can tell he's in this for the right reasons. And I'm glad he's doing this. I really can't wait to see it. So it's going to be probably, we're going to have to wait for the better part of a year, it seems like. Probably next summer.
I never thought I was going to see Dio on a stage again. So what's one more year?
I'll wait.
Yep,
for sure. Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Loudwire podcast. Make sure you visit loudwire.com for all your daily rock and metal news. Follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button on iTunes. Leave us a nice rating and a comment if you'd be so kind. Get ready for the first ever Loudwire Awards ceremony.
And concert.
Yeah, in Los Angeles at the Novo, October 24th.
We're going to be honoring Tony Iommi with the Courage Award. We're going to be honoring Rob Halford with the Lemmy Award. So both of those guys are going to be in the building.
Yep.
Tony Iommi, Rob Halford. We've got a trophy cast out of Tony Iommi's hand, and we turned it into a friggin' trophy. So eat that, Moon Man.
Yeah, so head over to loudwireawards.com for all your info on the award show. Follow me, Graham, on Twitter at GrahamWire.
Follow me, Joe, on Instagram at Ice Nerve Shatter.
All right. Thank you, everybody, so much. We will see you next time for another Loudwire podcast. Have a good one.
Look out!